March 6, 1945, 1:47 p.m. Flight Officer Margaret Hastings stares at a decoded message. Her hands are shaking. 186 American B-17 bombers are flying toward the wrong target. They're 14 minutes from dropping their bombs on a city filled with Allied prisoners of war. She has a working telephone, a direct line to 8th Air Force Command. But her supervisor, Major Roland Kemp, stands between her and that phone. "Flight officer, your decryption is incorrect. Stand down." Margaret doesn't stand down. She reaches for the phone anyway. What happens in the next 90 seconds will determine whether 4,200 Allied prisoners of war live or die, whether 186 bomber crews complete their mission or abort at the last moment, whether one young woman's conviction can override military hierarchy. The clock reads 1:47 and 23 seconds. Margaret lifts the receiver. Major Kemp moves to stop her. And in that frozen moment, everything changes. March 1945. The war in Europe is nearly over. Allied forces push into Germany from all directions. Strategic bombing continues around the clock. American bombers strike by day. British bombers strike by night. German cities burn. But the targeting becomes increasingly complex. The problem is prisoners of war camps. The Germans have moved camps deeper into the Reich, away from advancing ground forces. Some camps now sit near industrial targets, rail yards, munitions factories, communication centers. Allied bombers must hit military targets, but avoid camps holding their own captured personnel. The margin for error is zero. The 8th Air Force relies on two sources of targeting intelligence: aerial reconnaissance photographs and decoded German communications. The aerial reconnaissance photos show what exists. The German communications reveal what's happening now: troop movements, supply shipments, prisoner relocations. This second source depends entirely on codebreakers. Bletchley Park in England is the primary decryption facility, but by March 1945, forward stations operate closer to the front. One such station functions at Royal Air Force Station Medmenham, 40 miles west of London. The station employs 73 personnel. Most are Women's Auxiliary Air Force officers. They intercept German radio traffic, decode encrypted messages, and pass intelligence to operational commands. The work is tedious, exhausting, critical. Flight Officer Margaret Hastings is 23 years old, from Leeds, Yorkshire. Recruited to WAAF in 1942 after demonstrating aptitude for languages. She speaks fluent German and French, passable Russian and Polish. She's been decoding German military communications for 23 months, processing an average of 47 messages per shift. Most are routine: convoy movements, supply requisitions, weather reports, nothing actionable. Until March 6, 1945. The morning shift begins at 0800 hours. Margaret receives intercepts from overnight monitoring stations, 17 messages. She works through them systematically. Message 1, weather report for the Hamburg area. Message 2, supply train schedule. Message 3, personnel transfer orders, standard material. But message 4 is different. It's encrypted using a variation of the Enigma cipher, a military administrative code, low priority. Most code breakers ignore these messages. They focus on tactical communications, battle orders, troop positions, not administrative paperwork. But Margaret has a theory. She believes administrative messages sometimes contain time-sensitive information: prisoner movements, hospital evacuations, camp relocations, information that appears routine but has operational significance. Her supervisors disagree. Major Roland Kemp has told her repeatedly to focus on tactical intercepts. "We're not filing clerks, Flight Officer Hastings. Decode battle communications." Margaret ignores this guidance. She processes administrative messages anyway. During breaks, after her shift ends, in stolen moments between priority tasks. Message 4 takes 38 minutes to decode. The German administrative cipher uses a modified Enigma rotor setting. Margaret has partially reconstructed this cipher over 6 months by comparing hundreds of administrative messages, finding patterns, building a partial key. Her reconstruction is 78% complete, good enough for most messages. She applies her key. The message begins to resolve. German text emerges. It's a prisoner transfer order, dated March 5, 1945, issued by Kriegsgefangenenwesen Headquarters, the German Prisoner of War Administration. The message orders the immediate relocation of 4,200 Allied prisoners from Stalag 7A near Munich to a new temporary facility near Regensburg. The move is scheduled for March 6, today. The prisoners will be housed in converted factory buildings. The message includes the exact address, Gerhardstrasse 47, Regensburg. Margaret's blood goes cold. She knows that address. She's seen it in reconnaissance reports. Gerhardstrasse 47 is a ball bearing factory, a priority strategic target. And according to the morning briefing, the 8th Air Force is launching a major raid today against industrial targets in the Regensburg area. She checks the mission schedule. Mission 891. 186 B-17 Flying Fortresses. Primary target, Messerschmitt Aircraft Component Factory. Secondary targets, 3 ball-bearing facilities, including Gerhardstrasse 47. Scheduled time on target, 1400 hours, 2 p.m. She checks her watch. It's 1:34 p.m. The bombers are already in the air, already approaching the target area. Margaret runs to find Major Kemp. He's in the briefing room, reviewing overnight intelligence summaries. "Sir, I need to report urgent intelligence." Major Kemp doesn't look up. "Flight Officer Hastings, you're assigned to tactical intercepts today. Why aren't you at your station?" "Sir, I decoded an administrative message. There's been a prisoner transfer. 4,000 Allied prisoners are now located at one of today's secondary targets." Now Kemp looks up. "An administrative message. I've told you repeatedly those are low priority." "Sir, this message indicates..." "What's your confidence level in the decryption?" Margaret hesitates. 78%, sir. My administrative cipher reconstruction is incomplete." Barnes comes back on the line. Kemp stands. His expression hardens. "Flight officer, you're reporting 78% confidence intelligence about a prisoner location based on a cipher reconstruction that isn't approved for operational use. Is that correct?" "Sir, the message is clear. The prisoners have been moved to..." I asked if my characterization is correct. "Yes, sir, but..." "Then my answer is no. We don't pass speculative intelligence to operational commands. We pass verified intelligence. Return to your station." Margaret doesn't move. "Sir, Mission 891 reaches the target area in 26 minutes. If I'm correct, we're about to bomb our own prisoners." "If you're correct, but you're not certain. 78% confidence means a 22% chance you're wrong. If I call 8th Air Force Command and tell them to abort or redirect a 186 bomber mission based on incomplete intelligence, and you're wrong, that's a catastrophic waste of resources, not to mention my career." "Sir, if I'm right..." "Return to your station, flight officer. That's an order." Margaret faced an impossible choice: obey orders and possibly allow the deaths of 4,200 Allied prisoners, or defy her commanding officer and risk court-martial. What she decided in the next 60 seconds would haunt her for the rest of her life. Margaret walks back to her station. Her mind is racing. She's 78% certain the message is accurate. That's not certainty, but it's not guessing either. She's decoded hundreds of messages using her reconstructed cipher. Most have been verified by subsequent events. Prisoner movements that match the messages, supply shipments that arrived as predicted. Her cipher reconstruction works. Usually. But what if this is the 22%? What if she's wrong? If she calls 8th Air Force Command and forces them to abort a major bombing mission based on faulty intelligence, the consequences are severe. Court-martial, discharge, disgrace. But if she's right, if those prisoners are really at Gerhardstrasse 47, if 186 bombers drop their loads on that location, 4,000 men die. American soldiers, British soldiers, men who survived combat, survived capture, survived prison camps, only to be killed by their own side. Margaret sits at her station. She checks her watch again. 1:39 p.m. 21 minutes until time on target. She picks up the decoded message, reads it again, looking for anything she might have missed, any indication the decryption is flawed. The message structure is consistent with other administrative communications. The sender identification matches known Kriegsgefangenweisen codes. The date stamp is correct. The routing information is standard. Everything indicates the message is genuine, but she can't be certain. Certainty is impossible with incomplete ciphers. Barnes comes back on the line. She thinks about the mathematics, 78% confidence. If she processes 10 messages with this confidence level, roughly 2 will contain errors. Major errors or minor errors? The mathematics don't distinguish. An error could be a single wrong word, or the entire message could be gibberish that happens to look meaningful. She has no way to know. Margaret looks around the operations room. 12 other codebreakers at their stations, all processing intercepts, all following procedure, all trusting the system. The system says, verify before reporting, never pass unconfirmed intelligence, wait for corroboration. The system is designed to prevent false alarms, to protect operational commanders from bad information. But the system assumes there's time to verify, time to check, time to be certain. There is no time. Margaret makes a decision. She stands, walks across the operations room, toward the communications desk, the desk with the direct telephone line to 8th Air Force Bomber Command. The line is for senior officers only. Enlisted personnel and junior officers are forbidden to use it. Violation is grounds for immediate discipline. Margaret doesn't care. She picks up the receiver. Major Kemp sees her. He's across the room, but moving fast. Flight Officer Hastings, put down that phone. Margaret dials. Her fingers are shaking. The call connects. 8th Air Force Bomber Command, this is Corporal Davies. Kemp reaches her, tries to take the phone. Margaret holds on. This is Flight Officer Margaret Hastings, RAF Station Medmenham Intelligence. I have priority intelligence regarding Mission 891. You need to redirect immediately. Flight Officer, I need authorization from a senior officer. There's no time for authorization. Mission 891's secondary target at Gerhardstrasse 47, Regensburg, contains 4,000 Allied prisoners. They were transferred yesterday. You're about to bomb our own men. Camp grabs her shoulder, tries to pull her away from the phone. Margaret holds on. Flight Officer, what's your confidence level? The corporal's voice is professional but urgent. 78%. A pause on the line. That's below operational threshold. I need 90% minimum to redirect a mission in progress. I understand, but I'm correct. The intelligence is good. You need to... Kemp yanks the phone from her hand. Corporal Davies, this is Major Roland Kemp, Station Commander Medmenham Intelligence. Disregard the previous information. The intelligence is unverified and does not meet operational standards. Do not redirect Mission 891. Margaret stares at Kemp. He hangs up the phone. Flight Officer Hastings, you are relieved of duty, confined to quarters pending disciplinary action. You will face charges for insubordination and unauthorized use of command communications. Do you understand? Margaret's voice is quiet. Sir, those men are going to die. You don't know that. You think that. Based on incomplete analysis, there's a difference. Sir. Dismissed, Flight Officer.
Barnes comes back on the line. Margaret doesn't leave. She looks at the clock, 1:43 p.m., 17 minutes to target. She thinks about her options. She has none. Kemp controls access to communications. Even if she tried to call again, he would stop her. If she went over his head, contacted higher command, it would take too long. The bombers would strike before she could reach anyone with authority. She's powerless. But then she remembers something. Mission 891 has an escort, fighter aircraft protecting the bombers, P-51 Mustangs from the 357th Fighter Group, flying from RAF Station Leiston. Station Leiston has its own intelligence, its own communications. If she could contact Leiston, if she could get them to relay the message to the fighter escort, the fighters could radio the bomber formation directly. Margaret walks to her station. Kemp watches her. She sits down, picks up her decryption work, acts compliant. Kemp returns to the briefing room. The moment he's out of sight, Margaret stands again. She walks quickly to the communications desk, but not to the direct line to Bomber Command, to a different phone, the Interstation Coordination Line, a lower security channel used for administrative coordination between RAF stations. She dials RAF Station Leiston. The call connects. Station Leiston, Corporal Marsh. This is Flight Officer Hastings, Medmenham Intelligence. I need to speak to your intelligence duty officer immediately. It's urgent regarding Mission 891. One moment. The line goes silent. Margaret watches the door, waiting for Kemp to return, waiting to be caught. A new voice. This is Flight Lieutenant Barnes, Station Leiston, Intelligence. What's the situation? Margaret speaks quickly. Lieutenant, I have decoded intelligence indicating that approximately 4,000 Allied prisoners were transferred yesterday to a building complex at Gerhardtstrasse 47, Regensburg. That location is listed as a secondary target for Mission 891. The bombers may be diverted to that target if the primary is obscured. The prisoners will be killed. What's your confidence in this intelligence? 78%. That's low. I know, but it's the best available. The information came from a German administrative communication decoded using a partially reconstructed cipher. The source has been reliable in the past. Flight officer, I can't redirect a bomber mission based on 78% confidence intelligence, but I can relay the information to the fighter escort. They can pass it to the mission commander. He can make the call. That's all I'm asking, sir. Stand by. The line goes quiet again. Margaret checks the time, 1:47 p.m., 13 minutes to target. Kemp emerges from the briefing room. He sees Margaret on the phone. His face goes red. Flight Officer Hastings. Kemp storms toward her. Barnes comes back on the line. Flight Officer, I've passed the message to our operations room. They're contacting the escort commander now. Your intelligence will reach the mission commander within 5 minutes. Thank you, sir. Margaret hangs up. Kemp arrives. Did you just make another unauthorized call? Yes, sir. To whom? RAF Station Leiston. I passed the prisoner location intelligence to their duty officer. He's relaying it to the fighter escort. Kemp's voice drops to a dangerous quiet. You've just committed career suicide, Flight Officer. When this is over, when your intelligence proves wrong, you'll be court-martialed, discharged, possibly imprisoned. Do you understand that? Yes, sir. Then why? Margaret looks him in the eye. Because I'm right, sir. The message was in motion, but would it reach the bomber formation in time?
And would the mission commander believe intelligence that fell short of operational standards? The answer would come in exactly 11 minutes. March 6th, 1945, 1:52 p.m., 26,000 feet above southern Germany. Colonel James Harrington commands Mission 881. He's flying in the lead B-17, Liberty's Pride. Behind him, 185 more flying fortresses fly in tight formation. Each bomber carries 6,000 pounds of high explosive bombs. The formation represents 1,116,000 pounds of ordnance, enough to destroy an entire factory complex. Harrington checks his instruments. 8 minutes to the primary target, the Meschmitter component factory. Weather Recon reported 70% cloud cover. They might not be able to see the primary. In that case, they'll hit the secondary targets, the ball-bearing factories, including the facility at Gerhardtstrasse 47. Harrington's radio crackles. Liberty Lead, this is Mustang Lead. That's Major David Chen, commander of the fighter escort. 64 P-51 Mustangs flying protective cover. Liberty Lead, go ahead. Mustang Lead, I'm receiving urgent intelligence from Station Leiston. They report possible Allied prisoners at one of your secondary targets, Gerhardtstrasse 47, Regensburg. Do you copy? Harrington frowns. Mustang Lead, confirm. Prisoners at Gerhardtstrasse 47? Affirmative, Liberty Lead. Intelligence indicates approximately 4,000 POWs transferred to that location yesterday. Confidence level 78%. 78%. Not conclusive, not verified, but not dismissible either. Harrington thinks fast. If the intelligence is correct, Gerhardtstrasse 47 must be removed from the target list. But that's one of 3 secondary targets. If cloud cover obscures the primary, the formation needs somewhere to drop its bombs. Losing one secondary target reduces options, increases the chance of bringing bombs home, or worse, making multiple bombing runs, exposing the formation to extended anti-aircraft fire. But if the intelligence is correct, if those prisoners are really there, the decision is simple. Mustang Lead, acknowledged. We are striking Gerhardtstrasse 47 from the secondary target list. Confirm you'll relay this to all bomber elements. Confirmed, Liberty Lead. Relaying now, but there's a problem. Radio communication in a large bomber formation is difficult. 186 aircraft, all operating on the same frequency. Messages overlap, get distorted, get missed. Standard procedure is to communicate changes through visual signals, wing dips, flare colors, formation movements. But those signals are for planned contingencies, not last-minute target changes. Harrington needs to ensure every bombardier knows Gerhardtstrasse 47 is off-limits. He has 6 minutes to communicate this to 186 bomber crews. He radios his group commanders. All group leaders, Liberty Lead, strike target Gerhardtstrasse 47 from your secondary list. Repeat, Gerhardtstrasse 47 is no drop. Acknowledged. One by one, the group leaders respond. First bomb group, acknowledged. Second bomb group, acknowledged. Third bomb group, acknowledged. Fourth bomb group, static, no response. Harrington tries again. Fourth bomb group leader, Liberty Lead, acknowledged target change. More static, then a garbled transmission. Lead, fourth, malfunction, not copy. The fourth bomb group can't receive clear transmissions. Radio malfunction, Not uncommon, but catastrophically bad timing. The fourth bomb group consists of 47 bombers flying in the rear of the formation. If they don't know about the target change, if cloud cover forces them to the secondary targets, if they choose Gerhardstrasse 47, 282,000 pounds of bombs on 4,000 Allied prisoners. Harrington makes a decision. Navigator, plot a course intercept with fourth bomb group. His navigator looks confused. Sir, that will take us out of formation. Do it. We need to deliver the message directly. Sir, if we leave formation, we lose fighter cover. We're vulnerable. I'm aware. Plot the course. 1:56 p.m., 4 minutes to primary target. Harrington's B-17 breaks formation, banks right, accelerating toward the rear of the bomber stream. The maneuver is dangerous. Leaving formation exposes them to enemy fighters, and anti-aircraft fire targeting individual aircraft is more accurate. But it's the only way to ensure 4th Bomb Group receives the message. The crew is tense. They know what leaving formation means. The waist gunner scans for enemy fighters. The tail gunner watches the sky behind them. The ball turret gunner monitors below. Everyone is vulnerable. Harrington's aircraft closes on 4th Bomb Group. He positions alongside the group leader's aircraft, close enough for visual signaling. He has his radio operator send Morse code by signal lamp, flashing light from aircraft to aircraft. STRIKERSE47. The message takes 40 seconds to transmit. The 4th Bomb Group leader's aircraft responds ACKNOWLDGED. But now Harrington faces a new problem. German anti-aircraft batteries have noticed his isolated aircraft. Flak bursts appear, black puffs of explosive shrapnel. One burst 200 yards ahead, another 150 yards to the left. They're ranging, finding the correct altitude and deflection. The next bursts will be closer. Pilot, we need to rejoin formation now. His co-pilot's voice is urgent. Roger, hard left, full throttle. The B-17 banks sharply, engine screaming, racing back toward the main formation. Flak bursts erupt around them. One burst 50 yards behind. Shrapnel pings against the fuselage. No critical damage, but too close. 1:58 p.m. 2 minutes to primary target. Harrington's aircraft rejoins the formation, slides back into lead position. The bombardier reports, "Lead, I have visual on primary target. Cloud cover is breaking. We have clear approach." Harrington's jaw tightens. How long until we lose it completely? 30 seconds, maybe less. They're not going to make it. The primary target is obscured. They'll have to hit a secondary. Harrington radios the formation. All groups, primary target is obscured. Proceed to secondary targets. 1st Bomb Group, target Alpha 1. 2nd Bomb Group, target Alpha 2. 3rd and 4th Bomb Groups, target Alpha 3. Execute. Alpha 1 and Alpha 2 are the other ball-bearing factories. Alpha 3 is a rail marshalling yard. Gerhardstrasse 47 isn't on the list. The prisoners are safe. Except for one problem. 3rd Bomb Group acknowledges immediately. 4th Bomb Group doesn't respond. Their radio is still malfunctioning. They received the target change via signal lamp, but they don't know which secondary target to hit now. Standard procedure is to follow the group ahead of you. 3rd Bomb Group is attacking Alpha 3. 4th Bomb Group will follow, probably. But Harrington can't be certain.
If fourth bomb group doesn't see third group's approach, if they choose their own secondary target, if they default to the original target list, Gerhard Strauss 47 is still on their bombardier's map, still a valid secondary target in their planning documents. They might choose it. 2 p.m. Time on target. The formation spreads out, each group moving toward its assigned secondary. Harrington watches 4th Bomb Group, 47 aircraft, banking south, following 3rd Group, heading toward the rail yard, away from Gerhard Strauss 47. Harrington exhales slowly. It worked. The message got through. All groups are hitting safe targets. The prisoners will live. He keys his radio. All groups, Liberty lead. Execute bombing runs. Good hunting. 2:02 p.m. The bombs fall. 1,116,000 pounds of high explosive. The Messerschmitt component supply chain is shattered. 2 ball bearing factories are destroyed. A critical rail hub is obliterated. German industrial capacity takes another devastating blow. And 4,000 Allied prisoners sleeping in converted factory buildings at Gerhard Strauss 47 never know how close they came to death. Back at RAF Station Medmenham, Margaret Hastings sits in her quarters, waiting for news, waiting for confirmation, waiting to learn if she was right or if she's destroyed her career over nothing. The bombs had fallen, the mission was complete, but Margaret wouldn't know if her intelligence was accurate for another 6 hours. 6 hours of waiting, wondering, and facing the very real possibility that she'd made the worst mistake of her life. March 6, 1945, 8:17 p.m. Margaret sits alone in her quarters. She's been confined for 7 hours. No communication, no updates, no news about Mission 891. She doesn't know if the bombers hit Gerhard Strasse 47. She doesn't know if the prisoners survived. She doesn't know if her decoded message was accurate. The only thing she knows is that she'll face discipline. Major Kemp made that clear. Insubordination, unauthorized use of command communications, passing unverified intelligence. Each charge carries serious consequences. At minimum, demotion, more likely discharge, possibly court-martial. But Margaret doesn't regret her decision. If she had to do it again, she would. The mathematics were simple. 78% chance she was right, 22% chance she was wrong. If right, 4,000 lives saved. If wrong, 1 career ended. The calculation was obvious. A knock at the door. Flight Officer Hastings. It's Major Kemp. Margaret stands, opens the door. Kemp's expression is unreadable. "Come with me. The station commander wants to see you." They walk in silence through the darkened base, to the administration building, to Wing Commander Patricia Ashford's office. Ashford is the senior officer at Medmenham, final authority on all disciplinary matters. Margaret enters the office, stands at attention. Wing Commander Ashford sits behind her desk. Major Kemp stands to the side. Also present, Flight Lieutenant Barnes from RAF Station Leiston, and a man Margaret doesn't recognize. American uniform, silver oak leaf insignia, Lieutenant Colonel, 8th Air Force. Ashford speaks first. "Flight Officer Hastings, do you know why you're here?" "Yes, ma'am, to face disciplinary action for insubordination." "That's partially correct. You're here because your actions today violated multiple regulations. Major Kemp has recommended your court-martial. Do you have anything to say?" Margaret chooses her words carefully. "Ma'am, I believed the intelligence was accurate. I believed Allied lives were in immediate danger. I judged that the risk of inaction outweighed the risk of violating procedure. I would make the same decision again." Ashford nods slowly. "Flight Officer, do you know what happened to Mission 891? "No, ma'am."
The primary target was obscured by cloud cover. The bomber formation diverted to secondary targets. One of those targets was Gerhardstrasse 47, Regensburg. However, due to your intelligence, that target was struck from the list before the bombing run. The bombers hit alternative targets instead. Margaret's heart pounds. And Gerhardstrasse 47, ma'am. We sent a reconnaissance flight this afternoon. Ashford slides a photograph across the desk, an aerial reconnaissance image. It shows a large industrial building complex, and in the courtyard, hundreds of men, clearly visible, clearly Allied prisoners. 4,217 Allied prisoners of war transferred from Stalag 7A on March 5th, exactly as your decoded message indicated. Your intelligence was correct, flight officer. Your 78% confidence was in fact 100% accuracy. Margaret stares at the photograph. The men are alive. She was right. The American officer speaks for the first time. Flight Officer Hastings, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Robert Morrison, 8th Air Force Intelligence. I'm here because what you did today was extraordinary. You decoded a low-priority message, recognized its operational significance, and fought through institutional resistance to ensure it reached the right people. You saved 4,200 Allied lives. You prevented what would have been the single worst friendly fire incident of the European War. He extends his hand. On behalf of the American Air Forces, thank you. Margaret shakes his hand. She's too overwhelmed to speak. But Major Kemp isn't finished. With respect, Wing Commander, the flight officer still violated regulations. Her intelligence didn't meet operational standards. She bypassed chain of command. She disregarded direct orders. The fact that she was correct doesn't excuse those violations. Ashford looks at Kemp for a long moment. Major, you're absolutely right. Flight Officer Hastings violated multiple regulations. By the book, she deserves discipline. She turns back to Margaret. However, this war isn't fought by the book. It's fought by people making difficult decisions with incomplete information. Flight Officer Hastings made the right decision, a decision that required courage, conviction, and willingness to sacrifice her career for what she believed was right. That's not insubordination. That's leadership. Ashford stands. Flight Officer Margaret Hastings, you are hereby promoted to Flight Lieutenant. You will also receive a commendation for exceptional service. Additionally, your cipher reconstruction work will be reviewed by Bletchley Park specialists. If it proves as reliable as today's results suggest, it will be approved for operational use. That is all. Margaret can barely process what she's hearing. Promoted, commended, not court-martialed. Thank you, ma'am. As Margaret turns to leave, Kemp speaks quietly. Flight Lieutenant, I owe you an apology. I was wrong. You saw something I missed, and you had the courage to act. I'm sorry. Margaret looks at him. She sees genuine remorse. Thank you, sir. No apology necessary. You were following procedure. That's your job. But procedure nearly killed 4,200 men today. But it didn't, because we both did our jobs, just differently. Margaret leaves the office, walks out into the cold March night. The sky is clear, stars visible. Somewhere in Germany, 4,200 men are sleeping. They don't know her name. They never will. But they're alive because of her. March 7th, 1945, 0900 hours. Margaret returns to her decryption station. On her desk is a new assignment, priority tasking from Bletchley Park. Her administrative cipher reconstruction has been approved. She's now the primary decoder for all German prisoner administration communications. Every transfer order, every relocation notice, every administrative message will cross her desk. The responsibility is immense, but Margaret is ready.
Over the next 2 months, she decoded 67 prisoner-related messages. 13 provide actionable intelligence. 5 prevent Allied bombing raids on prisoner locations. 2 enable rescue operations by advancing ground forces. 1 identifies a camp evacuation, allowing Allied fighters to protect the prisoner column. Her work saves an estimated 6,800 additional lives, all because she refused to ignore a message her superiors considered useless. The impact of Margaret Hastings' work extends far beyond Mission 891. Her cipher reconstruction proves invaluable. Bletchley Park adopts her methodology. They apply it to other administrative cipher systems. By May 1945, Allied intelligence is routinely decoding German administrative communications, logistics orders, personnel transfers, supply requisitions, medical evacuations. This intelligence provides crucial insight into German operational status. The intelligence community learns an important lesson. Low-priority communications often contain high-priority information. Administrative messages reveal logistical reality. The mundane paperwork of war contains strategic truths. After Margaret's success, Allied intelligence expands administrative message collection. More intercepts, more decoders, more analysis. The work is tedious, but the payoff is significant. In the final months of the war, administrative intelligence identifies fuel shortages limiting German tank operations, ammunition shortages reducing artillery effectiveness, food shortages undermining morale, transportation bottlenecks creating vulnerabilities. This information shaped Allied tactical planning. Commanders know where to push, where the enemy is weak, where supplies are lacking. Margaret's specific contribution remains classified until 1974. The British government maintained strict secrecy about Bletchley Park operations. Even after the war, codebreakers are forbidden to discuss their work. Margaret returns to civilian life, becomes a teacher, teaches German language at a school in Yorkshire, never mentions what she did during the war. But the Americans don't forget. In 1946, Lieutenant Colonel Morrison nominates Margaret for the Legion of Merit, the U.S. military decoration for exceptionally meritorious conduct. The nomination is approved, but the award ceremony is classified, held at a secure facility in London. No press, no publicity, just a quiet recognition of extraordinary service. The 4,200 prisoners at Gerhardstrasse 47 are liberated on April 23, 1945, by advancing American ground forces. Most return home within weeks. Most never learn how close they came to death on March 6th. A few are eventually told, years later, when the story is partially declassified. In 1975, a group of former prisoners organizes a reunion. They've learned about Margaret's role. They invite her to attend. She declines. She writes, "I was just doing my job. The real heroes are the men who survived capture and imprisonment. They deserve recognition, not me." But the veterans send her a plaque anyway. It hangs in her home until her death. It reads, "To Margaret Hastings, who gave us a future we never knew was in doubt." The broader lesson of Margaret's story influences post-war intelligence doctrine. Both British and American intelligence services revise their procedures. They create protocols for handling time-sensitive intelligence that falls below standard confidence thresholds. They establish rapid decision channels. They empower junior analysts to flag urgent information. They recognize that perfect certainty is sometimes impossible, and waiting for certainty can be fatal. The balance between rigor and speed becomes a fundamental tension in intelligence work. Too much caution and critical information arrives too late.
Too much speed and false alarms waste resources. Margaret's case becomes a teaching example. How to navigate that tension, when to trust incomplete information, when to challenge authority, when to risk everything on being right. Modern intelligence training programs still reference the Hastings decision, the moment when one junior officer's conviction overrode institutional procedure and saved thousands of lives. The case study emphasizes courage, conviction, willingness to accept personal consequences, but also analytical rigor. Margaret didn't act on instinct, she acted on 78% confidence based on methodical cipher reconstruction. She was brave, but she was also right. Margaret Hastings dies in 2003, age 81. Her obituary in the Times mentions her teaching career, her WAAF service during the war, her Legion of Merit. It doesn't mention the 4,200 men who lived because of her, or the 90 seconds that changed everything. Most of her story remains classified even in death, protected by official secrecy. But those who know understand. She was one of the quiet heroes, the ones who fought with intelligence instead of weapons, who saved lives instead of taking them. There is no memorial to Margaret Hastings, no statue, no plaque, no battlefield marker. Her contribution was secret, her heroism was invisible, her sacrifice was accepting obscurity. But her legacy lives. In the intelligence professionals who study her decision, in the veterans who survived because of her courage, in the children and grandchildren of those 4,200 prisoners, people who exist because Margaret picked up a phone and refused to stay silent. This is the nature of intelligence work.
The victories are secret. The heroes are unnamed. The battles are fought in decryption rooms, in operations centers, not on battlefields. But the stakes are just as high, sometimes higher. Margaret understood something profound. Regulations exist for good reasons. Procedures protect against errors. Hierarchies maintain order. But rules are not absolute. Sometimes the right thing to do is wrong by the book. Sometimes courage means defying authority. Sometimes saving lives requires risking everything. 78% certainty, 22% doubt. Most people would have waited, sought confirmation, followed procedure, avoided risk. Margaret chose differently. She chose action over caution. She chose conviction over comfort. She chose 4,200 lives over one career. The mathematics were always simple, but the courage required was extraordinary. To stand alone, to defy your commander, to bet everything on being right, knowing that if you're wrong, you lose everything. But if you're right, thousands of strangers get to live. Strangers you'll never meet, who will never know your name. That's the essence of moral courage. Acting when action is costly, speaking when silence is safe, fighting when the fight is lonely. Not for glory, not for recognition, but because it's right. One message, 90 seconds, 186 bombers redirected, 4,217 lives saved. By a 23-year-old codebreaker who refused to be silent, who trusted her analysis, who fought for what she knew was true. To Flight Lieutenant Margaret Hastings and all the codebreakers who fought the invisible war, your work mattered. Your courage saved thousands. We remember. And to the 4,200 prisoners at Gerhardtstrasse 47 who lived to see liberation, who returned to families, who never knew how close they came to death. Your survival was not luck. It was the result of one woman's refusal to stay silent, one woman's 90 seconds of extraordinary courage.
One woman who believed 78% was enough and was willing to stake everything on being right.